All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this newest edition of Griz Paths, the new Alumni Career Pathway Series. My name is Jay Beagle. I am the Engagement and Outreach Coordinator for the Alumni Association, and I will be moderating today's panel. Throughout the session, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A section, and I will get those asked to our panelists. So today we have 5 wonderful panelists with us here, all from Nike, who graciously took time out of their busy schedule to speak with you all. So I will let them introduce themselves. If you just want to drop your name and a brief why you chose Nike.
Okay, I can start, and then I'll have Ava go after me since we're in the same room. I'm Cooper Sprunk, graduated University of Montana in 2017. I chose Nike mainly because one of the biggest reasons is my dad and sister have been working here for a really long time, and it's kind of been in our family for quite a while, but it also brought me back to Portland. It's I think one of the cooler companies we get to work with. Playing football at Montana, I definitely wanted to stick in the sports industry, and this definitely sufficed for that. And it's been a really good place to work. The facilities here are fantastic. The career development, career progression is also amazing. So it's kind of everything I could have wanted in a company.
And what's your role?
Oh, sorry. I am in global performance operations, and high level, it's essentially tying together inventory, supply, financials, consumer insights, marketplace trends, and then geo insights as well, and tying it together to prep our leaders to then present to our senior leadership team of how a current season is doing.
I'll go next. Ava Mazzoni. I graduated in 2019 from the University of Montana. I chose Nike because of the 2 internship options I had received. Nike sounded the coolest. I wish I had a better answer. Just like that versus consulting, I was like, Nike for sure. No offense to consulting, but I was really excited to join Nike. I'm a consumer planner. So basically, I am the bone collector of historical data, marketplace and sales insights, inventory assumptions, and just the general sentiment about the macro environment. And we create forecasts for our elite high schools and club programs across the country and across every sport of every gender.
Go ahead, JC.
Okay. Hi, you guys. JC, Dungy or Delaney, both go. I am in our North America brand marketing function at Nike. So essentially what that is, are very geo-specific storytelling product launches that are significant in North America. We on our brand marketing team are working specifically to bring that storytelling to life. Right now, I'm on the college team and the brand initiative team, so very focused on those, if you're thinking like college football playoffs and you're thinking March Madness, those kind of things that we bring to life on the college side. And then on the brand initiative side, things like So Win, if you saw our commercial at Super Bowl, again, very North America specific things. And I chose Nike similar to Ava, but I got an internship going into my senior year at Nike. And so came to Nike, came to campus that summer and fell in love and have been here ever since. I didn't mention that I graduated in 2019 as well.
Awesome. Hi, guys. I'm Bree Leiter. Based on JC's explanation, I feel like I'm like the global version of JC, but I work on our global brand team right now, kind of leading some of our Nike Skims work. We recently launched a brand with Skims. I graduated in 2015 and actually didn't like fall into Nike, but I think my husband actually took a job here, which is why we lived in Portland. And I just kind of like, I really love what Nike does from a marketing space. And I think you're working with the best when you're in brand here. And so yeah, just wanted to be a part of it. And I believe in the mission and kind of continuing to push sports. So it's been a fun ride.
I guess I can finish it up. Thanks for having us. Dan Nelson. So I manage a small team that does like all of the sales samples and digital content for our sales reps and third-party wholesale retailers. Similar to Cooper, had some family members that worked at Nike and was always in love with sport and the brand, and that was the North Stars. But I just am so dedicated to that mission of bringing sport to every athlete.
Great, thanks for the introductions, all of you. So first question, what role did your education at the University of Montana play in preparing you for a career in your specific field?
I mean,
If anyone wants to take that away, go for it.
I can start. I think something that the University of Montana did for me was lay that foundational knowledge. I think the business school specifically, coming in, I could not tell you what margins were. I couldn't tell you any of those things, and they're so applicable today when we talk about the company as a whole. So really that foundational vocabulary knowledge, I think, is instilled in us from, accounting, 101 or something. Like, it's from the jump that we start that, which is really great. And then I think what we do really well is we bring in real world examples into the classroom. So I know a lot of us have worked with Salesforce, VBA, things like that. So not only is it just like your education, your vocabulary, it's real world examples, teamwork, things like that is what I have found the University of Montana to be the most helpful with.
Yeah, and I can piggyback off of that. I wrote down something very similar, that it was the amount of business classes. It wasn't just like if you were a marketing major, you then took 20 marketing classes. It was a wide range that you, at least for me, to use Ava's word, like had a great foundation going into Nike or the professional world. So that was super helpful. I got a degree in marketing. I have rarely used it, but having Montana's other classes kind of helped support me as I joined Nike and went through the planning and supply chain was really beneficial. And then just all the different job fairs, having people come in and speak, and then professors all having real world experiences was really beneficial as well.
I can jump in on that, and kind of from a different lens. I think from less of what I specifically learned in terms of like tangible skills, it was very much so the relationships I think that the business school brought to me. It might be self-explanatory being on the marketing side. Like I always say, like get the analytics and numbers far away from me, but the relationships and the people that the business school brought in and were able to curate with us really tested those skills to be able to network, be able to learn and grow in that sense, that I think is so valuable at Nike, to be able to be in a room with people, speak to what you know, and really make that impression we can. And so I think the University of Montana Business School is really a really special place, and it stands out across the campus for sure in terms of what you've learned and the people that we got the opportunity to work with.
Yeah, I think kind of like doubling down, and maybe it's because JC and I are both in marketing. I think relationships are so huge, both like from a networking perspective and like getting your foot in the door. But I think our job is like, we probably work with so many people on a like daily basis, and you're always in meetings and you're always trying to like win people over, sell them on something. And so I think knowing the value of like relationships and where other people are coming from, and just like having those personal skills, I think a lot of it, like regardless of what you study, to Cooper's point, when you get on the ground in any job, like you're going to have to learn. Like they can't teach you everything. And so I think making sure you also have all those soft skills and just like understand people and kind of like the workforce is also just super important, because at the end of the day, if nobody like likes you or gets along with you, you're not going anywhere, and they can kind of teach you the hard skills.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of an outlier. I was like in the health sciences school, so not school of business, but I'll talk in broader terms. I think University of Montana, there's a lot of curiosity and work ethic, humility, the ability to think critically and work as part of a team. So I think those fundamental traits will definitely serve you well at Nike, and you're going to get those in droves at the university.
Great. Well, we already have some questions in the chat, so I will go ahead and ask a couple of those now. The first one, we're really diving into some things. So how does Nike integrate consumer analytics into product decisions? Is it more descriptive, predictive, or experimental? Anyone want to touch on that?
I can speak like from a marketing. I'm sure Cooper and Ava maybe have like better insights like more specifically, but I think we work closely with our product teams. Like for Nike Skims, it's only our second launch actually today, so go shop the product. We like actually do really pay attention to what consumers are saying, and obviously we look at like what is selling. Like if it's something unexpected, we try and buy more of that for the next season. So I think for us, it's like, I would say it is like predictive, but it's like paying attention to the consumer and looking at things that maybe don't feel analytical, or like we pay attention to what people are saying on social, and like we're all watching the TikToks, and like we do learn just from exactly what they're saying. So it's less about having like these really, really deep, robust analytics, which of course we do have. But I think even from a marketing lens, it's like pay attention to what your consumers are saying and like take that to the right people at the table to kind of impact product in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call out. And we had an all-team meeting yesterday, and Elliot had said something that I think we've been struggling with the last couple of years, and we've been really reactive to what consumers have doing. I think in a perfect world, we're predictive and kind of want to be or have an accurate guess of what the consumer's going to like. Like we got in some trouble with like Dunk, Air Force One, and AJ One because consumers really liked it for a year or two, roughly around COVID, and then we just kept trying to push those products down the consumers' throats a little bit. So I think getting to a point where we're trying to be innovative and create the next best shoe or the next best clothes with Skims, and really predicting what the consumers are going to like and go after it a little bit more.
Yeah, I would say from my side, like I'm really in the weeds. I'm really in the data, and it's an art and a science, as cliche as that sounds. We are trying to balance, what has happened with what we think is going to happen and find somewhere in the middle. To Cooper's point, we don't want to over-index on something. But then with a Skims, for example, we want to make sure that we're servicing that consumer to the best of our ability. And that means having inventory. It means all of those things. So what is that kind of fine balance between knowing what we think is going to happen and like what's actually happened, and how will that inform us in the future?
Great. Well, I hope that answered the question. So another one in the chat is from Nick. What is the learning and development culture like at Nike?
It's the best. I'll say that pretty bluntly. It's really nice. Everyone wants to help everyone learn and grow. I've worked at a couple companies in the past where it was a little bit of like, what can you do for me? I feel Nike's truly a let's grow together as a team, because if you're on a team and not everyone is really up to speed, it's really tough to progress and kind of work towards a common goal. And I feel like I've talked a ton, so I'll stop there.
No, Cooper, I think that's a great shout. And it made me think of like, I feel like Nike, and I can only speak really from the marketing side, is very much so a team sport. I think a few of us played college athletics, and I've learned so much from being a college athlete into a room at Nike, because to Cooper's point, everybody wants to grow, everybody wants to learn from each other. Coffee culture is such a huge thing here, of like reaching out to people to go get coffee, to simply just like learn from them, ask them questions. And 9 times out of 10, people are going to make the time to help you learn. I think on the development side too, is Nike's known for kind of switching roles every few years. Like once you choose marketing, you're not stuck in marketing forever. If you choose sports marketing, you're not stuck there forever. It's very much so encouraged to hop around different functions to really get a well-rounded resume and well-rounded career, which is super appreciated. And I think that's a really unique thing about Nike.
Yeah, I would say it's best in class. You've got like self-serve. There's so many assets and tools you can use through like Nike U internally and learn at your own pace, whether it's strategy or AI or whatever you're interested in. And then the culture of like development and learning on the job is, there's some great people here, brilliant minds, and everybody's really wants to see their teammates succeed. So I think it's a great place to come in and learn from on your own, and then by doing.
Awesome. Thank you. One more that came in from the chat is, what advice do you have for people to use on cover letters and resumes to help stand out when applying to jobs or internships with Nike?
I can go. Ava, you go.
You go first, and we'll see if we might end up touching the same thing, so you're all good.
I think a couple things. I think number one, like networking is really big. I think like JC hit on it with like coffee dates. I think if someone's in college, like come to Portland for spring break and like set up coffee with all of us. Like I think learning about Nike and getting your foot in the door is so much about who you know. That said, I think we're also in a big focus of like, we need to hire external people to do things differently. I think from a standout perspective, like, none of us are in HR and like actually see what comes through the system, but I think Nike really values people that want to be here also because of a love of sport. So I think like hitting on like, why do you want to work at Nike, and making sure that's from a very authentic place. Like, if it's not because you played, like I'm not a college athlete, and like I still like love sport and I'm here for different reasons, but I think making sure that that comes through and you're like telling that story in your cover letter always sets people apart. Or like, there's like sneakerheads here who can fire off every sneaker Nike's ever made, and it's like maybe they're in like a position that isn't necessarily what they studied, but they're like want to be at Nike, so they're like willing to get their foot in the door. There's also a lot of like ETW contract positions, which are like another great way to get your foot in the door. So I think like go, if you want to be here, you might have to be flexible with how you come in, but make sure you're just like constantly explaining like why do you want to be here and that's really genuine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another thing too, more from like a tactical standpoint, is really looking at the job description and making sure you're kind of hitting those key words in your resume. I think with AI coming more into play, resumes are being screened now from a computer lens rather than a person right off the bat. So you want to kind of get through the technology, and in doing that, looking at, the job or internship description and making sure your experience mirrors that is really, really important, just to kind of get that initial foot in the door, I guess to say.
Yeah, I think just to follow up and double down on Bree's point, I put it in the chat, is there's a website, I don't know if off the top of my head, but where we do hire contract workers. And for those that aren't familiar, you get like a 6-month or a year, could be longer contract at Nike and certain things. A lot of people get their foot in the door that way. So I would say don't be scared of having a contract opportunity. And then on resume standing out, something I'd say, and again, I speak from a marketing lens, I feel like when I was in college, my resume was very like text heavy. I think Nike, especially for marketing, sports marketing, creative roles, really appreciate a visual. So whether you create a deck and you have more about yourself as a person and your passions and why you want to be here versus maybe just text heavy word, I think that's how you stand out a little bit and also just show more of you as a person. A lot of times Nike, and I don't want to say this is a blanket statement, but looks at you more as a person before even your specific skills and how you can work around the campus. So.
Yeah, and to add on to that, Dan, I'm sorry for about to hop off mute, but the last time I interviewed for a job, like a year and a half, 2 years ago maybe, I was told to obviously have a resume, have like 3 or 4 jobs, but each description have 2 to 3 bullet points, but more importantly, have a storyboard about you and kind of a timeline. Like I have an 80-pound dog that's like a horse. I talked about that. I like to smoke meats. I like hanging out with my family, Netflix, stuff like that. So showing who you are as a person, what your interests are, is a little bit more beneficial, because I think Bria touched on this earlier, but you can learn just about every job. It's more culture and how you work, and if you want to work with other people, and if you're collaborative. So I think it's bigger to just show your personality.
That was all great. I would just add, be persistent too. That's really key. Curate your story on what makes you unique and what you love about Nike, and a lot of the AI and resume words is key, but persistence is really key, right? Finding an opportunity and capitalizing on it.
Great. So kind of along the same lines, can you talk about a mentor or a networking opportunity that made a significant difference in your career?
Oh, I have one. So I was not a student athlete, but I worked in the University of Montana athletic department, if you will. And Heather Alexander, she is, I believe, like the manager, the assistant AD now over there. And she was just like the probably most fearless woman I have ever met. She is somebody who I learned so much from. She taught me that you have to be an expert, in your craft kind of before moving on to the next thing, and that you can always learn and continue to improve something. And that the minute you stop learning, it's probably time for that next thing. But she just taught me so much about both the business world and how, it kind of goes hand in hand with sports, from accounts payable to student athlete insurance, things kind of like that. I mean, she is really an amazing person. And I highly recommend, kind of talking to some people within the athletic department, not just coaches, but the people kind of behind the scenes. They have such great knowledge and insights on how to work in the sports industry. They're truly amazing.
Yeah, I would also say, especially while you're in college, if there are any professors that you enjoy talking with or want to get to know more, like reach out to them. They're always great people to connect with. They have been in the business for a while and know kind of how to navigate, whether it's jobs, internships, or just connecting you with the right people. That's what I tried to do when I was there. And I'd use Sherry Licola, who was fantastic, and loved kind of just bouncing ideas off of her and seeing what was out there. But I also, when I did get into Nike, I started using my manager and then just some coworkers who've been at Nike for a while, and just bounce ideas off of them, pick their brain, and just try to learn as much as I could.
Yeah, I think kind of what Cooper's saying too. I was like super close to Jackie Moore, and I see Emily Plant on here, and she was also a big piece in this too. Like when alumni would come to town, like if they had jobs or roles that like I was kind of like interested in their careers of making those connections, like hey, like Carrie DeLu, who's another alumni, I think it was like Emily or Jackie set me up with her to get coffee. Every time she came to town, I would get coffee with her, and she hired me for my first job out of college at L'Oreal. She connected me to someone at Nike when I moved to Portland. Like she still is so involved, and we keep in touch. And so I think like don't underestimate the relationships, or like even just like again getting coffee with people that are in town that, if any of us come to town, I'm sure like, someone in the business school might know and can kind of set you up to kind of meet people. I think relationships are just so huge. And every single job I have had since college has been via a UM connection. Not necessarily that they work there, but they know someone, and like stalk LinkedIn, see who you can find. Because I think that at the end of the day is like a personal recommendation is what gets your foot in the door, because then people trust you and know you can kind of like be a good culture fit too.
Yeah, I actually had a great mentor in New York City. So coming from a small town of Montana and living in New York is talk about a fish out of water. But I think mentors are so critical to development, and they help you navigate the unknown. One thing I thought was really important is make sure it's organic too, and not force a mentorship. You'll feel it, right? So trust your gut, and also make sure it's a mutual, like collaborative agreement. Like he was a little bit older, and I was able to help him with tech, and then he would help me with like how do you exist in New York, and how do you work with that type of personalities in New York, and on a really strong vocal account like Foot Locker. So I would say organic is important, having it like mutually beneficial, but just can't stress how critical those relationships are, both professionally, personally, and all of the above.
Yeah, I would just reiterate what Bree said. The first job I got at Nike after my internship, I left for a little bit to go to a small company, but it was through a relationship I made through my internship. And I just reached out and asked how things were and organically asked to catch up. And she then referred me. So I think the big thing is keeping in touch with people. I remember being told that when I was in college, and I'm like, I feel annoying, or I don't want to keep following up, but it truly shows that you care about something. I also think something I'm starting to realize even more and more since college is looking at people in your life that you look at as role models, whether they're really successful, whether they have a, like great job, whether the way that they speak in front of a room is something you admire. I think just keeping things that you want to be in your future in mind, and identifying people in your life that do that, and just sit down with them and have a conversation. I think like what Dan said, personally, professionally, it's only going to help you. And I do reiterate that relationships are really everything, especially at a place like Nike.
And if you didn't see, Bree just added into the chat that remember to check in when you don't need anything, just to keep in touch. So you're always, on that person's mind too. If people out there didn't see that in the chat, which is a very good point. We had another question from a recent graduate, and it's asking if there's anybody that you know of that in particular that they should get in touch with and at Nike to just start a conversation. And I will add to that question, if they're not in Oregon, because you talked about just grabbing a coffee or something, what is the best way to reach out to those people when it's, a long distance away?
I think Zoom dates are also fine. Like coffee's not always an option. Personally, Zach, my husband works in finance here, so I'm happy to also throw his name in the ring just to like learn from somebody who's been in finance and has a lot more to speak on what that looks like here. I don't know, Jay, I'm happy to give you my email to share with them. But yeah, I think like Zoom is also realistic of like, again, look on LinkedIn, find a role, find who's attached to it. Maybe they know Cooper, and then you can reach out to Cooper because you're like, hey, I listened to this Griz panel and you were on it. Like, I think we've all been there, so we get it. And so I would say, yeah, Zoom is just as worthwhile. Like I'm sure we've all taken a Zoom with someone in college at some point in our career to help them. So it doesn't always have to be close proximity.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to put in the chat if you said it, Bree, but LinkedIn, I know it's probably not the most fun, but hit up anyone in finance at Nike on LinkedIn. Personally, I'm not the best at checking LinkedIn, so it's definitely worth sending a couple of different messages, but majority of the time, everyone at Nike I don't know who said it, but got to Nike through a connection. It wasn't like just kind of a random application. So most of the time, everyone is really looking forward to help connect someone with someone at Nike. So it's definitely a good spot to start. So start to.
And I will say the Montana connections run deep here. I feel like so many times I say I'm from Montana and there's someone you know that's from Montana as well, or they know somebody from there. So it's a great place to be from Montana at Nike.
Anybody else? Dan, do you have something?
I'd say just bringing
come
some
up,
cattle
yeah.
house is always a good icebreaker. So
Great. Another question just came into the chat and it said, do you have personal relationships with your distributors that you frequently keep up with to get their feedback on product and overall feedback on services?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I can take that one. Absolutely. I work very closely with sales who will work with different accounts. I think they have quarterly review sessions. And by distributors, I'm assuming you mean a different accounts. I'm assuming you don't mean manufacturing. We also keep relationships with our manufacturing partners across the world as well. But absolutely, we are constantly intaking their feedback on different things, and that will inform design, product development, inventory plans, consumer planning, right? What the consumer wants, we want to be able to provide that. And so those insights are absolutely critical. And we don't always get them if we are going through a third party. So that third party is really important to get those to us.
I can speak from a sales lens. So worked on the Nordstrom account and Foot Locker. So those people are on the front lines every day and interacting with our consumers, not only on the wholesale side, but also like Nike retail partners. So that feedback is so critical. It can inform future trends. It can inform what the consumer is looking for now, and the consumer is moving so fast. So you've all read, I think we made some strategy missteps where we probably took those relationships for granted, but I can confirm that we are listening, and as long as it aligns with what Nike's strategy is and where we want to go and where we want to take the consumer, then I think they're very, very valuable insights.
Well, thank you for those answers. Another out of the chat, have any of you worked with anyone with the N7 program? And if you have, what's that been like?
I have not. My father did for a handful of years, and he said it was an incredible experience. He loved learning from the N7 team, seeing how innovative they were with the product, and loved seeing them just be so passionate. It kind of goes back to what we've been talking about, but just being really passionate about N7 work, not just the product, but what it does to the specific communities as well.
Great. What are some key skills in high demand today, and how can students or early career professionals develop those skills? And are there any soft skills that are important for success in your respective field?
Yeah, I think Bree did hit on one that I kind of wanted to reiterate is, I think you said win people over. I know that might not just be a marketing term, but that's also a planning term as well when we talk about, our ability to influence partners and how we want to, plan the business or provide for the business. So I would say the ability to influence, which kind of ties into storytelling. We're big storytellers here at Nike. I feel like that's a hot word I feel here. So storytelling, how do we get people to believe in our vision, believe in those things, and then just big picture thinking. I think those things, how do you view the business from that, top of the line, looking down? And I think Elliot does a great job of that, of looking at Nike as a whole versus just kind of staying in your lane, and how does your lane impact everybody else, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think oh, go ahead.
You go. Nope, all you.
I was just gonna add on to what Ava said. I think learning how to talk to people and again what they care about is important. I think from a presenting standpoint, that was something coming into the workforce I hate it. I still don't love presenting, but I could definitely do it a lot better than I could when I came in. like record yourself, ask a teacher to like sit with you for an hour and do your presentation over and over again and get feedback, like find a trusted buddy that wants to give you feedback, do it in the mirror, like whatever it is. I think getting really, really good at presenting will help you in interviews. It's going to help you when you like meet a team, of like being able to find how you want to speak about things and just being able to get comfortable in front of different audiences, especially here. I'm sure I speak for everyone on this call, like 90% of our day is meetings. And so sometimes those are with, VPs, C-suite, sometimes those are with the specialist, but it's like you need to be able to talk to everybody and like respect them in the same way. And so I think like presentation skills are just huge. Like watch all the TED Talks, look at all the tips, like do all the things to just make that a big part of like who you are. Because I think, again, so many skills can be taught, but like who you show up as in the workforce is going to be how people know you.
JC, I think I cut you off as well earlier, so I'll let you go too.
No, it's okay. I think Bree nailed it. That's exactly what I was gonna say, is just like get comfortable being uncomfortable with those skills, because I think you'll start to learn them. I remember doing a public speaking class and it was so uncomfortable, but I think I've learned so much from that, of just like standing in front of a room, seeing yourself on a camera, like the mannerisms you say, the words you maybe mumble. We all do it, but I think just again, making yourself feel uncomfortable to learn and grow, especially in a public speaking format.
And on public speaking, I was horrible at it when I first started, and I was kind of like, I don't know how to get better. I was kind of an entry-level job. I didn't have a ton of time or chances to present. And then one of my coworkers said they do this thing called Toastmasters, and it's literally a public speaking class for an hour once a week. And it was a complete game changer. I stopped using every time I spoke. I was way more confident, because you're speaking to 10 people you've never met before about a topic you learned 10 minutes ago. So that's super helpful. And there's a ton of other classes like that to work on those skills. And then I think something that's been really beneficial is something my first manager said, and he said, you don't know what you don't know. So be curious and ask a ton of questions. No one will ever be mad if you're asking questions to help you learn and understand the business and the work more as well.
I would just
Are we
add
all
a
good?
couple is, yeah, I would just add a
Go ahead.
couple
Go ahead,
is,
Dan.
yeah, adding a couple that you might think that they're absolutes, but dependability, grit, presenting is huge again, right? It's not my favorite thing, but it's a skill that can be developed and it is important. And then finally, just interpersonal communication and relationship building is critical.
So a question from Caitlin that came in is, were there any projects or accomplishments that help you get noticed early in your career?
I wouldn't say necessarily projects. I've, for whatever reason, joined teams, and the process, I wouldn't say it was broken, but there was definitely a ton of opportunity. And I think it's going back to being collaborative, like working with everyone on the team to understand how we can improve, and then kind of taking steps to improve the process and building credibility. And I've been fortunate enough to be on 2 or 3 teams that have done that, and that has definitely helped, I guess to your point, like be noticed earlier in my career. But it's also just being opportunistic and like, hey, we can help solve a problem here, or I'm comfortable in this job, but I'd like to learn something else as well, is kind of what I've had to do.
Yeah, I think just being hungry for opportunities. I think like if you have enough time in your day to go to your boss or manager and be like, what else do you need help with? What else I can do? I think asking for feedback is also a massive one, of like, how can I do this better in the future? Or what did you think of that? Of just being really open and honest about what you want, ask for what you want, and then just do the extra work, because I think that'll make you stand out more than anything. And then ask for feedback. I think rarely do people go to their boss and say, like, really tell me how it is, how can I improve? And I think people appreciate that, and that makes you stand out.
I think too, like adding on to what JC said, I like started here as a specialist, and there's like no job, I think, especially when you come in, that's like too small for you. And like my boss, who's like now a VP here, my first boss, she was like, I would never make you do anything that I haven't done or that I wouldn't do. And so I think having that mentality too, of like, I still go to FedEx to like ship packages for athletes, which is like so not in my scope, but it's easy, right? And I'm like, I can do it. It's easier for the team, da da da. Yes, at the risk of like, don't take on too much. I think at Nike, we do a good job of like working hard, but also making sure people do have life outside of work. But I would say if someone asks you to do something that you think is below you, like for a bit, you just need to kind of like, again, like do it and like have the grit and figure it out. You might learn something, you might meet someone else in a different department because you end up having to like partner with someone unexpected or whatever. I think just like taking the things that come at you and kind of doing them with like grace and just being grateful for the opportunity, especially while you're getting your foot in the door. And then hopefully, yeah, someday we're not all running to FedEx and doing the things that we don't want to do. But I think it does help show people of like, hey, I'm a team player. Like it doesn't really matter what you're asking of me. Like I'm going to get it done.
Yeah, our CEO always says, don't be a finger pointer, be a hand raiser. So volunteer for tasks. You're going to learn a ton. And then when you finish these, it might be an interview. You get a question about, tell me about a time where you worked as part of a team and a result. And then you've got some great examples throughout your career to lean on when you're telling your story.
Yeah, I think raise your hand too for things that you're just excited about, because that could pivot you in a whole different direction. It could take you to a whole new job that you didn't even realize that you wanted or were comfortable in. So if there's something that's interesting to you, raise your hand, talk to your manager, see if that's a possibility. I know here at Nike, we also do stretch assignments. So those are an awesome opportunity where you can talk to a manager and be, if you're doing your work really well, you can split your time 50-50 depending on the stretch. You can lean into a different role. So I remember coming from manufacturing, being interested in marketing and being like, can I stretch onto this team and just see what marketing is like? And that's a really awesome way to learn the business and do your work really well and kind of showcase that you want to learn and try something new.
All right. So is everyone good with that question? Answer? Great. So Austin said he is on the path for a management degree, but also looking into entertainment management, and was wondering if the entertainment management degree would be applicable for a corporation like Nike. And I'll add, do you guys really think the degree matters, or is it more the skill sets that you bring?
I think I can speak to the entertainment piece. I'm sure maybe JC and maybe other teams work this. We actually have an entire team that is called Entertainment and Celebrity. Most of them sit in LA and New York, just given where celebrities are. But obviously some do kind of work in the Nike office as well. I think sports marketing is another piece where it's like athletes are celebrities also. So there's a ton of careers that I think require an entertainment management background. I think like I work with someone directly who's dedicated to Nike Skims, and she runs all of our celebrity partnerships. We have people that manage our relationships with Travis Scott or kind of like whoever the celebrities we're working with at the moment are. There's people that is solely their job. And same with athletes. I mean, you have a whole team dedicated to LeBron, you have, teams dedicated to Serena. And those require a background similar to entertainment management, I think, but also knowing sport. So from a like field perspective, for sure, there's jobs here in that field. Maybe not as many in Portland as in our New York and LA offices, but for sure a big piece for us.
I mean, to be fair, I have a degree in MIS and I don't use it, which sounds terrible, I know, but it's like those foundational, those soft skills that we learned. I don't want to negate the degree, but I personally have not used like VBA coding in that class that we all take, or I haven't used like, super specific analytical skills that those classes may teach. So I think yes, the degree is important, I think, depending on where you land, but it's also about who you are, your ability to learn. I think a lot of jobs can be taught. I think that's been said before. So, yeah, I don't know about entertainment management, so I won't speak on that. But, from like a planning lens, planning can be taught. And so I don't think the degree is like you must have.
I'll just say I was bummed that entertainment management became a degree after I was gone. I would have taken that in a heartbeat. So, but yeah, I think it's definitely applicable. But to Ava's point, like you can also learn everything. I think entertainment management is also a pretty specific degree. So you kind of know where you're going to go with your career for the most part, unless you do a pivot. So I think it's good to help you kind of focus in on where, like if you're going to Nike, where you'd want to be at Nike.
So we have two questions here, going to kind of blend them together. So what advice would you give to someone entering the workforce in the field, and how do you stand out in such a crowded talent pool like there is in the Portland area?
I'll keep going. The advice I would give is reach out to people who have jobs you're looking for at companies you like. Again, going back to LinkedIn, reach out to them that way. Again, you might not hear a response, and that's okay. Like, just send out a couple different notes. And then when you do meet with them, show that you're passionate. You're not just trying to get a job at Nike because it's Nike, and I'll just keep using Nike. Talk to them that you're passionate about this job because it's what you want to do long term. You're not just trying to get a foot in the door at Nike. I don't know. I've seen a lot of instances where people will apply to 50 different jobs at Nike just because they want to get the foot in the door. Like, be passionate about one specific field and talk to people in that field. And then kind of similar for the crowded talent pool, like, is probably a pessimistic way to think, but I always think like there's someone who's going to be smarter than me and better than me. How do I stand out? And I usually stand out with a little bit of humor, my personality, humanizing myself with the other person, talking about my interests, like what I like to do with my wife on the weekend, how I like to hang out with my daughter, stuff like that, because people will remember that a lot more than, hey, I'm really passionate about Nike because I've worn Nike forever, I would say.
Yeah, I think we keep hitting on it, but it really is the relationship aspect. I think to what Cooper said, if you know somebody at a company, whether it's Nike or externally, meet up with them, show up really prepared with intentional questions. It's actually going to help you grow and take that next step in your career. Show up with a resume, ask them what they would do differently to make yourself stand out, and then follow up with them. Check in, whether it's on LinkedIn, email, text every few months, and just say, hey, has anything came up? Like, I'm still looking, or I'm still extremely passionate about this. But I agree with the sentiment of I'm someone just like lead with passion at all times and things will come versus just seeing what the next step is. But again, relationships and maintaining them are so important.
I'd say the other thing kind of like related to it, I think like the relationships piece is like also know what you're good at. I think being able to speak to your skill set is really big. I think there are a couple moments in my career where my boss, we do my review and she's like, you're so good at like these three things. And I'm like, really? And she's like, I think that could actually land you in a career over here. So it's like, if you're talking to someone on this call or someone at Nike and you're like, hey, here's what I like know that I'm really good at and here's my skill set. And of course, find like a very nice, like eloquent way to do that. It's like, hey, I know you're talking about this job, but I actually think you might be a fit over here. Like, for example, when I got into Nike, I had coffee with someone who worked in like a very operational team. And I was telling her about my background and what my interests were. And she's like, I hear you on like being interested in this role and why you're interested, but I think you're actually a better fit for like digital marketing. And then she sent me roles that were like connected to that. So I think know what you're good at and be able to talk about that because someone might guide you in a direction you didn't see coming. I think also at Nike, like half of our titles don't make any sense. So you might be looking at the job board and being like, I think that this is a role I'm interested in, but really you're actually trying to get into like our comms team and not brand. Or so I think knowing what you want to do from a skill set standpoint and what skills you want to use rather than just looking at titles can help mentors kind of guide you to the right thing.
Yeah, not to jump back in on this, but ask that person too that you meet with for another person. I think it can be a long chain of different relationships and it'll lead you to people that you would never meet. So like when you meet with someone and it goes well, like, is there anyone else that, maybe is in the marketing function, is maybe in finance, and like they're more willing to give you a name. And then there's just another contact you can reach out to and just continue to keep that going. It may be the third person, it may be the 20th, but something will stick at some point.
All right, I'm going to hop on to the next question because we're kind of running short on time and I want to get through some more. So this next one is from Isaiah, and he said he is a recent graduate but didn't go to business school, but still early in his career. So are there any ways to still get a foot in the door, and what do you recommend to pivot? Maybe Dan, if you want to touch on that. Don't want to put you on the spot, but you mentioned that you did not go to the business school, so.
Yeah, put me on the spot here. Let's see. You utilize your network, right? They're going to help navigate like how to make that switch. I always look at it as like you've got some fundamental skill sets that will translate, right? Whether it's like attention to detail or you've worked as part of a team. So be really focused on what you've done in your background that makes you a great fit for whatever it is at Nike, right? And be willing to learn. I think, yeah, there's like ETW is a good way to get your foot in the door. Contract work if you're looking to just get in and find a way, an entry point. So I think that is, and utilize your network and find out what opportunities are there.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think you're ever like too late in your career to like come to Nike. I started as a contractor. I was already like 5 or 6 years into my career. So I think it's, again, you also like there's everything at Nike. Like we have people that are in operations and we have people that are in marketing. Like it doesn't, business school, a lot of people here didn't go to business school, I guess is what I would say. But I would say it's like never too late to pivot. Again, I think to Dan's point, it's like relationships and like what is your skill set and what do you bring to the table and like where does that fit here? But it's like never too late to get in. We're hiring new people all the time.
All right. So this question is from Elias. What is the best coffee stop in Portland?
I like Case Steady Coffee downtown.
PDX coffee is good. Good coffee is good as well.
Yeah, good coffee is good.
There's a shocking amount of good coffee.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Say barista is pretty good.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good call.
All right, that is good to know. We'll do 2 quick questions real fast. And the first one is what differentiates someone who uses data well versus someone who excels and becomes a product or marketing leader?
I can talk to the data part because I'm in Excel and data all the time. Being able to not just understand the data and work through it, but also be able to tell the story that the data is telling you. Like if it's, I'll get really specific. Like if we're looking at running and it's up 10% versus last year, okay, that's great on paper, but you also should know like it's off a very low base. So of course it's going to grow and be able to tell the story like this looks really good, but it's not as good as it potentially could be. So I'm also, you can learn a ton with data in Excel, but just being able to pull the story through.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of that. Sorry, Bree. Okay. When we talked about some of the skills, storytelling, that kind of ties into what Cooper is saying is data is great, numbers are great, but like how does that help you further your ability to influence? What are you telling people? What is the action coming out of the data that you're sharing? So they're kind of hand in hand. Storytelling and data here, I feel like go really hand in hand at Nike.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know JC made the joke of like, we're in marketing, like keep the numbers far away from us, but we do have to care. Like, I think we just rely on people like Cooper and Ava to tell us what we need to know, right? And then it's like, we can help make decisions of like, how does that impact our marketing? Like, for example, this morning we launched our new Nike Skims collection. I've already gotten hourly reports of like, what are the top 20 selling SKUs every hour? And like, I have to pay attention to that to know what to do for like, I'm shooting another campaign next week. So what does this tell me for that? And so I think you have to rely on the people that can tell this story from the data. And we have so many of those at Nike that do an incredible job. But whether you're a marketing leader or you're in product, like you have to care. You just might have to get the story from someone else because we're not as good at telling it.
You think there's so much data out there.
Right.
A superpower is to take
Go ahead.
this massive subset and then boil it down to like 3 digestible bullet points.
Yeah. And then marketing and brand will use those 3 digestible bullet points.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm going to jump on to the next question because we are almost out of time. So with respect to reporting to shareholders, how do you present your marketing reports and financial reports? Anybody wants to chime in on that real fast?
I'll just keep talking. We're actually working on this for next Thursday. It's a delicate mix of, I'm in planning, so it's pretty numbers focused, but it also, you don't want to put too many numbers on a page to where you're looking at it like, what is all this telling me? So we'll use specific charts you can do in Excel or in PowerPoint add-ons, and I think Dan just said it, but keep it to 3 main talking points to a slide with a ton of numbers on the back end. So presentation we'll have one big chart, and then we'll have 3 talking points, and then a ton of we call it back pocket information that you can also help explain if any questions come up, and trying to keep it high level and not super specific, like, oh, we're down 12.5%, which actually is up year over year versus 2 years ago. Like, that is just too nitty gritty, just pulling together the high level story.
Yeah, I think from reporting on a marketing standpoint, we're just getting asked for like, I need that video, or I need that like slide that you showed that does this and like summarizes what we did for launch. Like, I think the shareholder stuff is much more in like Cooper's world, finances world. A lot of us touch that from a standpoint of like, we impact what goes, we've worked on the stuff that shows up in it, but we're not like marketing. I've never actually put anything into like a board of directors report.
And I should say all the leaders are in so many different meetings, and that the thing I provide to them next Thursday is like one of 20 presentations they've had this month. So just trying to make it as easily digestible that not only can they read it, but someone outside of Nike or someone on a different team can read it and understand.
Yeah. Okay, I have one final question that I end all these with, and I want everyone to have the chance to answer it real fast. So if you could go back and give your U of M student self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Don't make me start again, but I'll go again.
Yeah.
So when I left Montana, I was dead set on getting into sports marketing because it was like the cool, flashy job. It was like I knew how to talk to players, coaches, equipment managers, and I got into sports marketing and was like, you know what? This isn't for me. I got into project management, sports marketing, and didn't love it. And not that I wasted 3 years because I learned a ton, but then I switched to planning and found out I love planning, which you asked me that 5 years ago. I'm going to say, no way I would ever like planning. So I would tell myself, don't go for the cool, flashy job. Go for the one that you're actually passionate about, not just looks good on paper. And I know that's hopefully different for other people on this call because I know Bree and JC are in kind of sports marketing. So
No, I think that's a great answer. My first initial thought, which is very surface level, but it's just enjoy it. I think enjoy your time in Missoula at school before you get into the real world. But mine was very similar to Cooper's, is really like sit down and think about what you're passionate about. I always like lead in interviews or conversations of like, if my job is not in sport, fashion, or travel, like I really don't want anything to do with it. And so I think just have a hard conversation with yourself and look at what you're digesting each day and what's on your social feed and what conversations really make you happy and ignite you, and really